All right. This is the guy that made Truth Podcast.
Boy, man. Even when you always vibe, it still can be difficult putting differences aside.
The beat for Truth Podcast and the beat for Game Day.
You're watching Fattacheenie TV, and guess what? It's Game Day!
This is one of my other favorite beats that he got going on. Let's check it out. Come on. I just think somebody would be like, oh yeah. You are now tuning into Swaggin' on Late Night Radio. He just got that New Jack Swing vibe. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I ain't gonna rap. I did that on the last one, so we're just gonna vibe out. Vibe out with me. Here we go. Once my knee gets a little better, I'll dance for y'all, but I can't do it right now. Okay, saxophone. Feel like this would be like on the menu for like a newer Sonic game. It's not a Sonic R type beat, but it's a little smoother with it. Yo, just vibe out with me. We vibing now. It's not as hype as the other videos, but we can't be hype every single day. We gotta take it slow, be smooth with it. All right, go follow my boy. I think his name is It's EC3. Go subscribe to him. As you can tell, I'm already subscribed. Subscribe to him and check out. He got some fire beats, and you'll hear like some other beats that you know from Truth Podcast or like Game Day is on here. But what's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Fattacheenie TV. Fattacheenie Reacts. I think that's what we're calling it. Shout out to my boy Waiota. I think it's actually Davy Sayada. I think if I'm pronouncing that right. Give me a thumbs up in the comments if I'm pronouncing it right. You tried to spell it out for me, and you know my reading, y'all. It's just so bad. But we going into another Elden Ring reaction video. I don't understand why you guys like these so much. Like, these videos is kind of blowing up for my channel once again, and I don't understand what it is about you watching the video with me. I don't think my reactions are that, like, good. I don't know, but y'all leave in the comments. I'll pin a comment up and say like, what is it about the reaction videos that y'all like? Maybe it's because I'm too old and I'm like, I'd rather just watch it by myself, but whatever. Let's go. I think it's the Demigods joint is what we up to next.
Are each and all the direct offspring of Queen Marika.
Here we
There
go.
was Godwyn, Morgoth, Mohg, Radigan, Rykard, Rani, Mika, and Melania, Blade of Mika.
Yeah,
Melania,
I did beat
Blade
her.
of
If
Mika.
you guys want me to post
Melania,
that.
Blade of Mika.
Yeah, this was me
Melania.
all day. I
Not
did
again,
beat
all of
her.
these
Y'all want me to
demigods
post
had
that? I
fallen
didn't
from
post
grace
that.
by
Me
the
beating
time
her,
the
but I
shattering
did.
occurred. But in this video, I want to mostly talk about the origins of these characters, who these demigods were before the fall.
Okay.
Some of these demigods fell a long way indeed. Before he became this unsightly mess, Godwyn the Golden was quite the heroic figure. He was born of the promising union between Lord Godfrey and Queen Marika, and he achieved great renown for his bravery in one of their wars at least, the War of the Ancient Dragons. This war began when Grandsax, a great ancient dragon, rained calamity down upon Leyndell, marking the only time in historical record that Leyndell's walls had fallen. It's not clear why Grandsax first attacked, but fortifying themselves against lightning, the Knights of the Erd Tree weathered his assault, and Grandsax was defeated. However, this was only the beginning, and a bitter war against the ancient dragons was to follow. During this war, the Erd Tree Sentinels had an epiphany that the only way to truly protect the Erd Tree was to become dragons themselves. And so, despoiling the corpses of their foes, the grotesque sentinels served the Erd Tree, but fought with the claws of the enemy.
He gave me some trouble, I ain't gonna lie. I didn't dodge that.
the end, the ancient dragons were routed once again. In a graveyard of swords by the Stormcaller Church, the end of the war is commemorated.
I never read any of those graves.
We learn that during battle, Godwyn the Golden defeated Fattacheenie, called the mightiest dragon of them all. However, he did not kill Fattacheenie.
Oh, that's
Instead,
him. Okay.
He befriended him. And it was in this act that the powers of the ancient dragons truly became a part of Leyndell. After all, only those loved
the
by
dragons,
dragons can survive the ordeal of cladding their bodies in lightning. So, from an unlikely friendship, an ancient dragon cult was born in the capital city, and the Knights of Leyndell learned to worship the dragons and wield their lightning. Lanciax, sister of Fattacheenie, even took human form to better commune with the knights.
Who is this?
It was officially decided that the worship of the ancient dragons did not conflict with belief in the Erd Tree, and it was all thanks to Godwyn, commander of the dragon's golden lightning, and a true child of the golden lineage.
Wait, I'm sorry, who's Godwyn?
But now, let's talk about Morgoth and Mohg, the Omen twins, who were also born of Godfrey and Marika's
Godwyn is the
golden
dude
lineage.
that died in the beginning of the game.
What is an omen? Well, to put it simply, an omen is an accursed child seen as impure, as they are born with horns on the body and face. When this happens, the correct thing to do, culturally at least, is to cut off the horns of the omen, an act which usually causes them
Is that
to perish.
like Loki
It's
from
pretty messed up.
Marvel?
But some omen do survive this process.
Is he an
and
omen?
Some omen are even given a cleaver, crafted specifically for them and awarded as a tool of war, although these weapons are bestowed with a readiness to take them
That looks
away.
like Radon sort of.
We
little
find
bit.
one such omen in an Erd Tree camp upon the Altus Plateau.
Look at my
Before
boy.
you
He
fight
got a
it, you
lot of
might have
horns.
noticed another omen nearby, writhing in its sleep. It's said that omens see evil spirits in their nightmares, and I think this omen is dreaming, haunted by the vengeful spirits of its accursed kin. This brings us to the Omen Killers, who are horrifying butchers of
They
twisted
weren't that
conscience.
rough.
They
I
wear
was
these
pretty
horned
leveled up by
masks
that
that
time
make
to
a
fight
mockery
them.
of the Omen's nightmares, and these butchers hunt the Omen and amputate their horns. The first Omen Killer was named Rollo, a famous perfumer
Dang, maybe
who
think my
had
boy
to
from,
imbibe a physic to rid
Code
himself
Geass.
of emotion so that he could better perform his tasks. Remember, it seems many Omen have their
perfume
horns
shop.
excised when they're very young. That's
that
definitely
little
disturbing
baby
enough to
thing?
warrant an emotion-killing physic in my book. However, if the Omen is born of royalty, then their horns are not cut off, but the Omen is kept underground, unbeknownst to
Dang.
anyone, and imprisoned for eternity.
So
By
is
way
that
of example,
Margot?
you would have seen
Or
all
Margot?
kinds of Omen confined to the
Margot?
sewers beneath Leyndell. But why are Omen considered to be accursed in the first place?
what did they do?
Some of them are clearly intelligent, so what's inherently wrong with being born with horns and great strength?
He pooed
Well,
it.
it's important to remember, I
Jumped
think,
up
that this
there.
curse might only really exist in the context of the Golden Order. After all, those afflicted with omen horns are not able to return to the Erd Tree for rebirth and are said to be born outside of its grace. But
Come
why
on,
does the
Grace.
Golden Order disavow the omen, then? Well, it's hard to say for sure, but my working theory is that it's to do with the Crucible.
There go the
According to this
Crucible
ancient
Knights again. They're
incantation,
so cool, yo. I'm
horns were
sorry.
once an aspect of the Erd Tree's primordial crucible, where all life was once blended together. And with the exception of a couple of Crucible Knights in and around Leyndell, we know that the Golden Order has started to distance itself from most things that touch upon the Crucible. While things like horns, knots, feathers, and scales once
It's
grew on the
knots,
human
not
body
nuts,
and
right?
were considered signifiers of the divine, now they are disdained as impurities as civilization has advanced. We learn this from the knot, scale, and feather talismans, all of which are guarded by omen or dropped by omen killers.
Sorry,
no
I read
less.
at the bottom. He
Unfortunately
said-
for the Order of the Erd Tree, these once divine impurities
He said, we'll go back just a little bit to read this. Need this to go away though. He said, no.
feather talismans, all of which are
Additionally- I'm
guarded by
sorry.
omen.
He said, no, additionally, Margot has a tail and Mo gains feather wings in phase 2. They are aspects of the Crucible. They
Or
do
dropped
look like that's what the Crucible
by
Knights
omen
do.
killers,
Okay.
no less.
I'm with you.
Unfortunately for the Order of the Erd Tree, these once divine impurities seem to crop up in some births, whether they like it or not. Almost like it's a genetic trait, as if it touches upon the Crucible at the root of the Erd Tree. And so you have to ask, is it really a curse to be born as a graceless omen? Well, as with most curses in these games, I think that depends on your perspective. In any case, Mohg and Morgoth were omen royalty, and thus they were born into a wretched mire far below the earth, horns and all. Here, they were kept under the strictest confinement. Each of them were bound with charmed shackles that were covered in roots or thorns and bathed in golden magic. It seems very few people were supposed to know that they even existed. Morgoth, for his part, renounced and despised his accursed omen blood, but his brother Mohg embraced it. Deep
Put in the comments if you want me to go fight Mohg. I probably am over leveled for him, but I'll go fight him real quick.
Craves wounds,
put in the comments, and that comment needs 10 likes, and I'll go and fight Mohg.
In this moment, Mohg's accursed blood erupted with fire, and he became besotted with the defilement that he was born into. Here, deep below the earth, he would go on to build a dynasty of blood
on that comment,
of a
and I'll go fight Mohg.
Something it seems he never truly had.
At the current level that I'm at now, so I'm going to be overpowered.
He was born into the same accursed fate as his twin brother, but despite not being blessed with grace, he loved the Erd Tree all the same, and even took it upon himself to crawl out of the sewers and become the Erd Tree's protector when the Erd Tree needed him most.
Randall, you need to stop thinking, brother. Okay, hold on. Just let me call my dogs. At least a dog. Let's call the dogs. Where my dog? Oh, I'm about to get hit by that. That's okay. We honestly not hitting for so much.
In the end, he rightfully became the Omen King and Lord of Leyndell. Omen or not, he was, after all, born of Godfrey and Marika's golden lineage. Of course, the marriage between Godfrey and Marika would be ended, and before long, Marika remarried with another man, a champion named Radigan, who Marika calls her other half. He became second Elden Lord and the king consort, but he also brought with him 3 children from a previous marriage that he had had with a Carian queen named Renala. These children were Rani, Rykard, and Radaahn. And they all became demigod stepchildren after Radigan's reunion with Queen Marika. Possessed of his father's flaming red hair, Radaahn was fond of its heroic implications and considered himself to be born of a great champion. Yet he also looked up to another man, Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, Queen Marika's first husband and the Lord of the Battlefield. But Radaahn wasn't just the son of Radigan and an aspiring lord of the battlefield, he was also the son of Renala, who was head of the Academy of Raya Lucaria and Queen of Caria. So as a Carian royal, inclined towards sorcery, Radaahn bent his will towards mastering gravitational magics. Rock sling, gravity well, collapsing stars. These techniques were taught to...
What are you doing, sir? What happened to your horse? What's happening? Oh Lord, he bringing up the earth. Shout out to Fujitora.
Him in Celia, the town of sorcery, all so he would never have to abandon his beloved but scrawny steed. That said, before long, his powers would be put towards a more cosmic purpose.
That's a fire pose.
Simply allowing him to ride his own horse. Radaahn was taught gravitational magic by an alabaster lord, a member of a race of ancients with skin of...
Who is that? All right, come on, you need some holy? You need some holy, brother. You need some life in your life. You need some of the Lord in your life. You need some Lord in your life. You need some of the God's word.
Count them! Oh! Get over here!
Okay, he grabbed me. Oh gosh, okay.
Stone, who was said to have risen to life when a meteor struck long ago. And when his lessons were complete, Radaahn uttered these chilling words.
Thank you for your tutelage. For now, I can challenge the stars.
And of course, he did conquer the stars, and the very constellations would be halted by his strength. But of course, you kind of have to ask, why? Why was it necessary to conquer the stars in the first place? Well, I have a couple of theories. Theory 1 is that it was done in self-defense. After all, according to the sword gravestone, Radigan was protecting Celia. What's more, gravitational magic has destructive power, and many gravitational beasts are proof of that destructive power. A being named Astel had even...
I got my other flies.
Almighty push!
What is he
That was crazy.
Come down to the lands between in the past and destroyed a place called the Eternal City. What's more, Celians are descendants of the Eternal, positioned right above the Eternal City underground, so there is an argument to be made for Radigan purely defending Celia for some reason here. But it's possible for Radigan to have fought in this conflict and to have made the first move as well, so this is theory 2. That Radigan conquered the stars as a preventative measure in service to the greater will. Okay. According to a set of astrologer items, the night sky cradles fate. There's even a banished sect of people called the Nox, who live deep below the earth in eternal anticipation of the coming age of stars and their Lord of Night. Long ago, these people invoked the eye of the greater will, so it would make sense that those in service to the greater will might have sought to arrest the stars and put an end to this fate. What's more, Radigan was just a huge fanboy of Godfrey, and he seems to have more loyalty to the Erd Tree than to the moon. Finally, the telescope item description says that the fate once writ in the night skies had been fettered by the Golden Order, so surely this is referencing Radigan's actions, and it levels the blame at the Golden Order. But putting Radigan's motivations aside, it's a fact that the stars were held back and that this had great consequences for many, especially for the rest of his Carian royal family.
Let me explain. The fate of the Carian royal family is guided by the stars, as is the fate of Lady Rani, first heir in the Carian royal line. But General Radigan is the conqueror of the stars, who stood up to the swirling constellations, halting their movement in a smashing victory. And so, if General Radigan were defeated, the stars would once again resume their movement, as would Lady Rani's destiny.
Lunar Princess Rani was the daughter of Radigan and Rennala, and sister to Radigan. So interestingly, if you look at her true body atop the Divine Tower, it looks like she might have also inherited the red hair of Radigan. Cool detail. But unlike her brother, Radigan, she quite clearly took after her mother more, who was Rennala, head of the Carian royal family. The House of Caria has this storied history, one that seems to go way back to the astrologers. In the Carian Manor, we find one of their treasures, the Sword of Night and Flame. It reads, astrologers who preceded the sorcerers established themselves in mountaintops that nearly touched the sky and considered the fire giants their neighbors. Rennala herself was an astrologer, always chasing the stars in her youth. Then she met the full moon, and in time, the astrologer became a queen, establishing the House of Caria as royalty.
Met the moon.
Caria appears to have a matriarchal hierarchy with multiple princesses and Carian knights that serve as their retainers. Now, however, there is only one princess, Rani, daughter of Rennala. And at the time of her birth, she would have been set to inherit quite a lot of power indeed, for the Carian royal family was at its height, and her mother was not only queen, she was also head of the Academy of Raya Lucaria, having bewitched them with the enchanting power of the full moon. Leading the young Rani by the hand, Rennala guided her daughter to a meeting with a moon of her own. What Rani beheld was cold, dark, and veiled in occult mystery. A dark moon, a sort of twin to Rennala's own full moon. You can even see both of these hanging in the sky if you stargaze from the heights of the Moonlight Plateau. Another who guided Rani was a character called the Snowy Crone, who the young Rani encountered deep in the woods.
Shout out to the crony.
When you look at Rani, it's actually the likeness of this snow witch that you're seeing, as the doll that now houses Rani's soul was modeled after her, probably as a sign of respect. Clearly, Rani looked up to this mysterious woman. She became Rani's secret mentor, and she even knew about the Dark Moon, teaching the young Rani to fear it as she imparted her cold sorceries. So, what do these moons represent? That's just a theory, but I think the moons kind of act as guides. The lost black moon of Noxtella, for example, was the guide of countless stars. What's more, Rani and Renala were heavily influenced by their moons. Renala's moon bewitched the academy that she became the head of, and Rani's dark moon, for its part, also imparts wisdom and leads a voyage in the Age of Stars ending. They could even be outer gods. And yet, for all of this guidance, Caria and Leonia as a whole have experienced steep decline. Radigan betrayed the House of the Moon. Radan locked the stars out of motion. The Academy town is flooded to the north. Caria has been ruined in the west, and the stars and moon have gone their separate ways. Nevertheless, Rani, last princess of Caria, remains, carefully setting new plans into motion.
Right.
Sibling to Rani and Radan was a man named Rykard.
This boy,
who was Lord
that was
of the Volcano
Orochimaru.
Manor. There is evidence that Rykard was friendly with his siblings. He conspired with his sister Rani later on, and there's even a portrait of Radan hung in the Volcano Manor,
so he had
as
love for
well
his
as a
brother and
portrait of
sister.
Rykard himself before the fall. Item descriptions mark Rykard as stern, ambitious, heroic, and blasphemous. A part of this blasphemy was opposing the Erd Tree, which actually drew many knights to his banner, for Rykard believed in taking by force,
How can you get
just as the gods did,
adjective of
and clearly many
blasphemous?
believed that he would usher in a new age. The armor set of the Gelmir Knights reveals to us what were once very
That
loyal
blasphemous
soldiers.
only had to
The
do
crest
with
of red
blasphemy
feathers are there
against
to
God.
symbolize Rykard's pedigree as Lord Radigan's son, and the emblem upon their chest piece represents a lord who had lofty ambitions. However,
Music
as
popping.
Rykard delved into the ancient secrets of Mount Gelmir, he came across the immortal Great Serpent, an ancient deity that aligned with Rykard's ambitions. And so,
he let him
Rykard
eat
fed
him.
himself to the
Yeah.
Great Serpent so that he might devour, grow, and live eternally. Alas, this was too much for his knights, and they believed that their master's heroic ambitions had degenerated into mere greed. So they searched desperately for a weapon with which they might halt their lord, and they found it too. The immortal serpent had lived for a long time, and so there was also a weapon to kill it that had been designed long ago as well, a serpent hunter. But it was too late. As the Lord lost his dignity, so too did the knights lose their master. Not that it bothered Rykard.
Now we can devour
Yep. That's literally
Next, we need to discuss
why I
Millennia
put in the
and
last
Mikola.
in that
These
video.
two were twins
Shout out to
as they
you.
were born. No, Rykard, please. Anyway, as you know, Radigan's marriage with Renala did not last. Afterwards, he returned to the Golden Order and became Queen Marika's consort. But what I haven't yet mentioned is that together they were blessed with two demigod children, the so-called twin prodigies. Now, in the last lore video, I briefly proposed that these two twins were born after the Shattering, after Radigan and Marika had merged together to become a single god. However, I've since changed my mind. I think Millennia and Mikola were clearly born before the Shattering. There's just so much proof that these two twins were a force that were influencing the world long before the Shattering took place. Anyway, both of these twins were born afflicted. Specifically, in the Japanese text, it's said that their births were vulnerable. Mikola was born afflicted with eternal youth, and Millennia, for her part, was vulnerable to rot. Interestingly, Millennia's Scarlet Rot is actually an outer god. This outer god, like many others in the game, seems to have an order that is able to be imposed upon the world via an Empyrean vessel, and Millennia was that vessel. And while the Scarlet Rot is pretty terrible, you can sort of argue that it's got a beauty to it. According to Gowry, the Order of Rot is resplendent. It's a cycle of death and rebirth. Kind of like the lotus flower, which is a flower that blooms anew, beautiful and fresh from mud. I actually have art of this flower hanging in my home. I always love the symbol of it. I actually have lots of art hanging now, and I'm going to talk about all of this artwork that you can buy at the end of the video. Anyway, So millennia, the Empyrean was vulnerable to and afflicted by the Scarlet Rot. There was said to be no cure to this, and while fire and consecration seemed to be somewhat effective at warding it off, millennia would slowly lose her physical self to the rot. Interestingly, old legends of the Scarlet Rot have persisted in the world for generations, and we learn more about the Rot God from the Blue Dancer charm. The dancer in blue represents a fairy who, in legend, bestowed a flowing sword upon a blind swordsman, blade in hand.
Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up out of your sleep!
And the swordsman sealed away an ancient god, a god that was rot itself.
I'm sorry.
Specifically, this god was long ago sealed away in the stagnant water that is downstream of the Ainsel River underground.
I'm sorry.
Wherever rot appears, the kindred of rot appear as well. These are pests and servants of the rot. And now, in the current age, these are servants that have been forsaken by millennia, who is their new goddess. So, this blind swordsman with the flowing curved sword actually went on to become millennia's mentor. So technically it's him that we have to blame for this goddamn attack. The prosthesis wearer heirloom tells us more. A talisman engraved with a scene from a heroic tale. Though born into the accursed rot, when the young girl encountered her mentor and his flowing blade, she gained wings of unparalleled strength. Millennia's ridiculous attack is called the Waterfowl Dance, and aesthetically it makes sense that, flowing waters would counter the effects of rot. For just as still waters turn foul, stagnation turns to decay. Thus, warriors must remain ever drifting. And indeed, Millennia does resist the call of the rot. There's a lot of evidence that she's not really a willing vessel, but through sheer will and sense of self, she resists the rot, and only when she is truly pressed in battle will she abandon this will and bloom into the goddess within.
How come I was never
Millennia's first bloom was during her fight against Radigan, and releasing her Scarlet Rot was a last-ditch effort that would forever taint the land of Caelid and cripple Radigan. So, whatever she was fighting for in this fight against Radigan, somehow it was worth this terrible act. In general terms, at least, it's clear that Millennia was fighting for her brother, apart from the times where she relapses into being.
Dang it! How? What the heck?
Being the goddess of rot, she is known as the Blade of Mika. She actually goes to great lengths to tell you this. I don't know if you heard. Despite being the toughest boss in From Software history, she's actually fighting for his right to godhood, not her own. In Millennia's own words, her brother Mika possesses the wisdom, the allure of a god.
I thought Mika was
he is the most fearsome Empyrean of all. For his part, Mika did a lot to earn his sister's dedication, not the least of which was inspiring her armor and a prosthetic of unalloyed gold. And it's not just his sister that loved Mika, many people did. The Bewitching Branch is an item that you can use to turn enemies into temporary allies, and it reads, "Indeed, he has learned very well how to compel such affection." For his father Radigan, Mika fashioned and gifted to him a fundamentalist incantation called Triple Rings of Light. Radigan then returns the favor, gifting back an incantation called Radigan's Rings of Light. These interactions show some of Mika's positive connections with his father and also Golden Order fundamentalism. And yet, the young Mika abandoned fundamentalism, for it could do nothing to treat Millennia's accursed rot. This was the beginning of unalloyed gold.
But what happened to him?
What is unalloyed gold? Well, an alloy is a composition of metals, so unalloyed gold is pure gold, essentially, with no external mixtures. This gold apparently can ward away the meddling of outer gods, and so Mika bent a lot of his efforts towards creating an unalloyed gold needle. Specifically, this needle was crafted for his sister, to ward off the rot god and forestall the effects of the incurable rotting sickness. We see the bond between the siblings as well when we visit Mikola's Halig tree. We see a statue of a one-armed woman embracing a child, Mikola. In this place, we see the biggest example of Mikola's benevolence, the Halig tree, and the society that was built into the brace that supports it. This was a promised land, seen as a salvation to many who were shunned or persecuted, provided that they can actually find the path here, of course. And like many other Empyreans, Mikola seems to have had the will within them to create a new order, and his is an order that's somewhat modeled on the ones that came before it. The biggest thing is that the Halig tree is clearly inspired by the Erd tree, but the difference is that Mikola's Halig tree is said to be accepting of all, even those the Erd tree shuns. Mikola himself was once embedded inside of the Halig tree, and he watered it with his very own blood since it was a mere sapling. Tragically, however, he was ripped out of this womb during the shattering, and his Halig tree ultimately failed to grow into an Erd tree, becoming a misshapen husk instead.
Why did he get ripped out?
That's the story for another day. There's also a ton of cut content to do with Mikola, and he's one of the most mysterious demigods, who I'm sure we'll learn about more later. But there is one more thing that I want to mention before I go.
I want to hear his story.
Of one
Got him.
theory I had during the making of this video. So, Mikola and Malenia each have their own butterflies. Malenia's is the Aeonian butterfly, which inhabit the swamp of Aeonia and are rumored to come from the wings of the rot goddess herself. And I think it's fair to say that Mikola's butterfly is the nascent butterfly, which appears as if it's just emerged from its cocoon for its entire life. This is a reference to Mikola's eternal youth and his cocoon in the Halig tree.
Wait,
but there is, of course, a third butterfly, right? There's the smoldering butterfly.
Yeah, I remember the
It's said to be an eternally burning butterfly that serves as kindling. Now bear with me, but it's my theory that this butterfly is a reference to Melina, who the Blade of Calling calls the kindling maiden and the one who walks alongside flame. This might suggest that Melina is a sibling to Malenia and Mikola. Again, that's just a theory, but what I really want to talk about here is that, at the very least, Melina is almost certainly the daughter of Marika. We learned this a long time ago from looking at her name in the game's files, and we can further infer it from her dialogue, as she has a few lines that refer to mothers and one that says that she was born inside the Erd tree. So, her being the daughter of Marika is also just a theory, but this one is much more concrete than the butterfly one. Although the reason I like the butterfly theory is that it gives us a hint as to who Melina's parents might have been. Her parents would have been Radigan and Marika, which is to say Marika herself alone, I guess, because Radigan is Marika. Honestly, Melina as a character has only become more mysterious since the game was released, and I'm really only scratching the surface with this theory. But speaking of times before Elden Ring was released, back then, a long time ago, I commissioned this piece from a renowned artist named Marco, and now I'm so excited to reveal it for the first time. This storybook scene is heavily inspired by the early looks we had at Elden Ring, with a red-haired protagonist, spirit companions, a mount.
I'm gonna bid you adieu. I'm so sorry that I fell asleep during this joint, y'all. I'm sorry. He be so soothing. Pause. Listen, I kind of want to learn more about Mikola and Malenia. Like, is that where we should go next? I know we did it out of order. It should have been Lord of the demigods, then Lord of the bosses. But put in the comments what we should do next. Let's keep it going. You know what's expected. I need at least 20 likes to keep it going. Y'all have been surpassing that. But 20 likes is all I'm going to ask. We're going to keep it going. Let's have some conversations down below in the comments. Also, if you are not part of the Fattacheenie fam, hit subscribe to the Fattacheenie fam, or subscribe to Fattacheenie TV. And also give this video a like. Shout out to YIOTA, you killing it, bro. Davey Sayada, I think is how you say it. And is there anything else I gotta say? I don't think so. I hope you have a blessed one. I'll see you on the next one. Later.